Alright, something I want to mention real quick. I do play on keyboard and mouse, so I'll be explaining everything from the perspective of keyboard and mouse. Alright, with that out of the way, let me explain the charge blade. Let me explain the charge blade. Alright, charge blade has two styles of play. You never want to go both at the same time. You either choose one or the other. Alright, and the first one I want to talk about is the SAED playstyle. This is the playstyle you can use without the DLC, the Iceborne DLC. The second playstyle is the Savage Axe playstyle, only available if you have the Iceborne DLC. But before we get to SAED, the main thing you need to learn to play either styles is file management. File management is important. Your files, as you can see in the top left, if you're wondering why I have 6 bottles over here, the reason being is because I have the capacity boost skill equipped. This gives me an extra file to use when fighting monsters, and it's a very good skill, but I'll get into skills in more detail later. So basically, to charge your files, you have to use attacks in your sword and shield form, and then you can now spend them to use your SAED or Savage Axe playstyle. Your highest file charging move is this right here, the hold right click. You want to make sure you don't just tap it, because that'll just do like a pathetic little smack right there. You want to hold it, but not for too long. If you hold it for too long, it'll return to being a little smack. You want to hold it just enough that it glows red right there, as you guys can see. That's your highest file charging move right there. Other good file charging moves is the spinning slash right here, which you can do after like a sidestep, or it's also performed after your third or fourth. Just spam left click your third one, you'll perform the spinning slash. However, the first two is very weak in terms of file charging, so that's not really recommended. If you want to spam your spinning slash, just spam your sidesteps, and this will charge your files relatively quickly, not as much as holding right click. However, you will be staying mobile. You'll be able to dodge the monster's attacks easier by doing this. However, it's slightly slower in terms of file charging. And you might be wondering, like, what do you do after you charge your files? What I recommend you always do, if you don't have it charged up already, is you want to charge your shield. As you guys can see, my shield is about to run out. So once it starts blinking, you want to start thinking about, oh, I need to charge my shield now. All right. And basically what you want to do is basically keep your files stored. You want to max files, preferably, and you want to spam left and right click at the same time. But if you're on a keyboard and mouse, and if you have that, the two side mouse keys on the side of your mouse, the bottom one, if you can spam that, and it'll count as left and right click at the same time instead of clicking left and right, manually, because sometimes you don't click them at the same time and it'll register as only a left or right click, and that'll suck. It'll mess you up. Just use the side mouse button if you have it. Some mouses might not have it. Unfortunate, you'll just have to click left and right manually, but if you do, good luck. That's great. You can just spam that, and right in the middle of the third attack animation, while your shield is right behind you and you stick your sword in, you want to click the top side mouse button. Alright, and if you don't have the side mouse buttons, I apologize, I don't know which key it is, because that's just what it is for me, how it always has been. You might have to check your settings. It's the same button as your guard key. Anyways, let me just demonstrate how you charge your shield real quick. Left and right click, and then you guys can see right there, right at the moment where the shield is right behind me and I stick my sword in, you click the side mouse key right there. You'll do like a spinny attack, the elemental round slash, and that will put your files, your stored files, into your shield, and now your shield is now glowing red. That's how you can tell your shield is charged, or you can see the charged shield icon. It's glowing in the top left corner of your screen. You usually want to keep this shield charged at all times, because you won't be able to SAD without the shield charged, and you also do less damage in Savage Axe mode if your shield is not charged. One of the biggest things about having your shield charged is that it makes your shield stronger. It gives you 2 levels of guard for your shield, and your shield blocking and doing shield attacks also does file damage. And you might be wondering, what the heck is a shield attack? Because you're attacking usually with the sword. This move right here is the shield attack. It's a left and right click after like pretty much any like move. After any sword move, I guess, you can click the left and right or the side mouse button, and you'll perform that shield bash, shield thrust, and you'll do file damage, as you guys can see right there. Those are little explosions that happen after the shield connects to the monster. TLDR, keep your shield charged at all times. Now that your shield is charged, you have unlocked the SAD move. You can't do SAD without shield charged. If you try to do it, you'll just do an AD, which is basically not as strong as the SAD. If you're wondering what SAD stands for, it stands for Super Amped Elemental Discharge, and AED is just Amped Elemental Discharge. The only time you want to do an AED while doing the SAD style is when you think you're gonna miss, and since AED has a shorter like animation and it doesn't spend all of your files, you can now save up on files if you think you're gonna miss. This is a little cool tip. Because SAD is such a big move, it covers a lot of range, big AoE attack. You want to be spaced out accordingly so you can hit all of your files to the monster. And if you're using an impact file, which is what I would recommend, especially during like progressing the story, the impact files are very much preferred over power element files. And with an impact file, SAD, the files will go in a straight line, while power element will go into like a cone shape outwards. But basically, a little quick tip here to position correctly for the SAD efficiently after you finish charging is this move right here, the sliding slash, which you can do by holding any direction after an attack and then right clicking. You'll be perfectly positioned, or at least pretty optimally, not perfect, but good enough positioned to hit an SAD like fully, for the most part. Alright, I'm gonna real quick show you guys the fastest way to go from 0 files to an SAD with 3 levels of focus. I'll show you guys how to do this with no levels of focus just in a second right after this, but right now I'm going to show you guys with 3 levels of focus, because with SAD style, this is, you really do want focus level 3. It's very important you have this skill. Also keep in mind, levels 1 and 2 of focus is basically irrelevant. It doesn't really contribute much to charging your files. Only when it's level 3 will it be a significant difference. Are you guys ready? I'll show you guys roll right now. Alright, 3, 2, 1, go. And there it is, an SAED. And that's the fastest way to go from no files to an SAED. And after this, you basically just want to just keep doing this. And just spam your SAEDs until the monster you're fighting is dead. This is what you just keep doing. And you see here, I'm doing the backsliding slash attack to help me position optimally to do an SAED right here. Right now, you see the backsliding slash positions me pretty well to go into an SAED, because if I'm too close, the files will go straight through the monster and you'll lose out on some damage. So instead of like, say, you finish charging your stuff and then you like backstep and you have to reposition. It's more time consuming than just slide slashing, because since it's a move, you can go straight to the shield thrust and you just skip the first part of the SAD combo. So basically this is the move. You basically spam this combo essentially until the monster is dead. That's how you play SAED style. And I believe I haven't mentioned this yet, but the file damage that you do from SAED, they do not crit. So it's not too important to build crit when you're playing this style. But I mean, the sword attacks still crit themselves, and also the initial axe hit from the SAED also does crit. So crit is not entirely useless, but it's not as important compared to other weapons. And also, it does not consume sharpness. The file damage itself does not consume sharpness, but your sword hits and your axe hits will consume sharpness. Anyways, moving on to Savage Axe playstyle. You don't necessarily have to have your shield charged to access Savage Axe style, but it gives you about a 10% damage boost to your axe hits if your shield is charged. And how you get into Savage Axe mode is you basically do the SAED combo, except on the third hit, on the third move, right before you SAED, you hit your scroll wheel mouse button. Alright? So first you need to charge your phials, and then perform the SAED, and then hit your mouse scroll wheel button. This will bring you to your Savage Axe style form mode. And yes, you can tell you're in the Savage Axe mode with the icon in the top left, or like your axe is like spinning when you're trying to attack. That's another way you can tell. Or it's just like glowing. Never do these attacking moves. Like, never try and axe mode your Savage Axe mode without activating Savage Axe. If you do these moves without Savage Axe, it is like significantly less damage. Okay, only go into Axe mode and deal damage with Axe mode if you have Savage Axe active. And basically the combo you want to do in the Savage Axe is just spam left click. Just spam left click. Only right click if you are certain you're gonna hit the head. Because with impact phials file damage does stun damage. This also goes with the SAED. The SAED file damage from impact phials does stun damage, so if you hit the head, you can actually knock them and stun them, knock them over and stun them. And while they're stunned, you can do some free damage, which is really nice. So, because the spamming left click with Savage Axe does not actually do any file damage at all, only right clicking will do file damage. So only if you're certain you're gonna hit the head should you do right clicks. However, right clicks do consume a file per hit. Also, not to mention, during Savage Axe mode, your files will continuously, over time, deplete, and once you have no more bottles filled, your Savage Axe will be gone. And you'll have to do the Savage Axe move again to reactivate Savage Axe. It's recommended you don't do the Savage Axe transforming move too often because it has a slightly long animation and it doesn't do too much damage either. So it's recommended you just stay in Savage Axe for as long as you can and just never run out of it. Just so you know, you can get out of Savage Axe mode and you'll still have the Savage Axe mode active, and it'll still consume files, but you can go back to your Sword of Shield mode while in Savage Axe mode and charge your files mid Savage Axe mode and just replenish your files to keep your Savage Axe mode going. Alright? And also keep note, I'll name this right click 1 and right click number 2. Alright, right click 1 is this right here. Right click 2 is this right here. As you guys can see, right click 2 actually does a double swing. You should always try and never do right click 1 because they both consume a file. However, right click 2 does more damage because it swings twice. And the way to basically shortcut, cut straight to right click 2 is you basically do any move with the axe mode. As you can see, the sword, the morph slash, where you go from sword to axe mode, and you right click, it'll go straight to the second right click. If you're already in axe mode, you can just like click right click, do the rising slash into the second right click number 2. Sorry, if you do a downward slash, you will perform the right click number 1, so keep that in mind. However, if you're holding a movement key, like say W usually, and do your like forward moving downward slash, you will do the right click number 2 afterwards. You won't do the first right click. And like this, when you have knocked over the monster or the monster is downed and you can comfortably hit the head, this is what you want to do. You basically want to start building up stun damage to the monster, of course hitting the head, and then finish off with an AED right before it's trying to get up. Not too early, not too late. Alright? You have to perfectly time it when it's getting up, and you have to build your stun damage correctly, and you can potentially chain knock the monster over. And it's going to be really effective to basically keep the monster from like basically like defending itself. And it's just free damage if the monster's on the floor, right? And keep in mind, do not do an SAED, because that will consume all of your files and you'll lose your Savage Axe mode, which will suck. Make sure to always perform AED. So basically how you do an AED is you have to hold back your S key and then hit left click right before you SAED. That will do the amped elemental discharge. When you're playing that Savage Axe playstyle in multiplayer, you gotta keep in mind the rising slash, the upward slash, this one right here, will actually knock your allies up. And that is not very good. So for multiplayer, it is not very, well, your allies, your party members will really not like you if they get knocked up by your rising slash attack. That will really piss them off. So this is a combo you can do in multiplayer if you're trying to Savage Axe in multiplayer. That way you don't knock your opponents up. However, you're going to have to consume some files. So basically, this is what you do. After right click number 2, you wait a second before you left click again to right click. If you right click too soon, you'll do the rising slash, and then you'll knock your allies over and away from the monster, and they'll be really pissed off at you, and you're both not going to be happy. So this is the combo you can do in multiplayer. You gotta wait till your character takes a step back before you left click again and repeat the process. This combo will consume files faster, but at least it's a higher DPS to have more hunters attacking the monster than just yourself attacking the monster. Alright? So make sure to do that if you're in multiplayer. Otherwise, if you're not bothered to do that, just SAED instead. Alright, if you want to take it another step further into mastery of the charge blade, there is a technique, a little skill you can do with the charge blade called guard pointing. Now this is just a regular guard right here, where you just hold your shield and then you get hit by whatever and you block the attack. Let me just change the objects of this training arena real quick. Give me a second. So if you just hold guard, you'll have the weakest block you have in the arsenal, okay? That is the weakest way you can block. The next step to upgrading your block is to have your shield charged. Also, if you block attacks, it will contribute to charging your files, by the way. So now that you have your shield charged, your shield will be stronger, you'll be pushed back less, and it'll consume less stamina. Because now that my shield is charged, I'll have 2 points of guard when I'm blocking. And to go a step beyond, you can do a guard point. Guard pointing is when you do basically essentially like a perfect timed block. It's not just hitting the block button like the perfect time. You actually have to do like an attacking move, and some moves will have your shield put right in front of you, and that is when the guard point is active. One of the most reliable guard points is your sword and shield morph into axe mode guard point. The morph slash, this move right here, and this move. The morph, like the moves you use to go from axe to sword and shield and vice versa are your probably most like reliable ways to guard point. As you guys can see right there, the brief moment my shield is right in front of me is when guard point is active. Let me demonstrate again. The morph to axe mode from sword and shield is the most reliable because it is the fastest way to access the guard point. It's very instant. It's faster than just regular blocking actually. Other moves you can do is the sliding slash. That 1 second while the shield is right in front of you is a guard point. Your guard point is active. You're also spinning slash is a guard point. Your move that makes you go into Savage Axe is also a guard point. However, that's a bit tricky as the timing is not as friendly as the other guard points. See, you see that moment, that split second right there, where the shield was right in front of the character? That right there, that is a guard point. That is one of your shortest guard points, but it's there, and it happens. More usually when you actually block with that guard point, it's usually just luck. It's really hard to time correctly, but it's if you can do that, you can flex on your friends. You do the Savage Axe guard point. That's pretty impressive, not gonna lie, because it's very difficult to do. But again, your most reliable one that you can count on is just the morphing to axe mode guard point right here. That is your most reliable guard point. And now that with the charged shield and the guard point gives you 2 extra points of guard. That'll be 4 points of guard. And a lot of people like to run 1 point of guard in their builds. That way they can max out to 5 levels of guard with guard pointing and a charged shield. So let me demonstrate what a guard point would look like. Right there. As you guys can see, I was pushed back even less, and I lost even less stamina. Let me demonstrate again. Boom. If you can consistently guard point, that means you are on your way to mastering this weapon. Charge Blade is a very safe weapon if you know how to guard point. However, you have to keep in mind that not all monsters' attacks can be guardable. Some attacks may need to use guard up, and some attacks just can't be guarded at all. Alright, let me now move on to the weapon details. There are 2 types of charge blades. There are the impact file charge blades and the power element file charge blades. Impact files do raw damage, and it is unaffected by wherever you hit the monster. It will do the same amount of damage to the head, tail, leg, arms, wings, belly, same damage everywhere. Raw damage, it will not crit. While power element files will do elemental damage, and it is dependent on like what spots, the weak spots of the monster. And the reason why I don't recommend using power element files is because, especially during story progression, if you come across a monster that is resistant to the element your power element file charge blade is currently equipped with, you will do significantly less damage. Now, moving on to skills. First of all, the most important skills for the charge blade are the file management quality of life skills, which are our focus and power prolonger. So focus, as you guys should know by now, helps you charge your files faster. This is the philosophy. If you spend less time charging your phials, you spend more time dealing damage. So indirectly, focus is actually a DPS increase. And on the other side of the spectrum is power prolonger. This will make it so that your shield stays charged up longer. It takes longer for your phials to deplete during Savage Axe mode. You should only consider running power prolonger if you want to run Savage Axe style. It doesn't do very much if you're trying to run SAD style, because it'll only affect your shield charge rate and I guess your sword charge rate if you charge your sword. But it is way better with the Savage Axe style. You don't really want to run both focus and power prolonger in the same build. You either really choose one or the other. Having both is quite overkill. You start overcharging and your sword will start bouncing unless you've charged your sword. It's kind of overkill to have both focus and power prolonger in the same build. You choose one or the other. The next most important skill for the charge blade is capacity boost. Alright, capacity boost, as I've explained previously, gives you an extra phial. This makes it so that your SAD will do an extra instance of phial damage, and also it'll make your Savage Axe last longer because you'll have an extra phial to deplete. Very, very, very good skill. Alright, you can definitely feel the difference with or without this skill. The next skill I want to talk about is guard. I know I have level 2 guard here, but you only really want one level of guard, assuming you are guard pointing. If you're not confident in guard pointing, you can go up to level 3 guard. If you're struggling to survive, maybe level 5 guard is the way for you. Who knows? Now the next skill I want to talk about, only applicable for impact phials by the way, is artillery. Artillery will increase your phial damage. If you're playing SAED, artillery is the most damage increase of all skills in terms of your SAED move. If you have an a power element phial, artillery does not affect your phial damage. Instead, you'll have to get your weapons element attack. In this case, I'm running a dragon element charge blade. I would want dragon element attack skill. That will increase your phial damage. So impact phials want artillery, power element phials want elemental attack. On the other side, with Savage Axe, you can still run either these two, especially if you're using a power element, you definitely still want your elemental attack skills. But if you're using an impact phial, it is really not that necessary for artillery because you don't really need to do some phial damage. It's not very important, although it still is, helpful. It's not completely useless. But what you really need or really want it with Savage Axe is all the crit you can get. Because the Savage Axe hits can actually crit, unlike the SAED phials, you want your typical crit build. So your crit eye, weakness exploit, crit boost, agitator. You want to have as much crit rate and level 3 crit boost as possible to up. That's your highest amount of damage, most efficient skill points, skill usage for most damage. Of course, agitator is really good for charge blade because it gives you both raw tech and crit, which benefits both Savage Axe and SAED. Another skill to talk about is offensive guard. Offensive guard is much more effective when you're playing SAED because what you can do, actually, let me demonstrate. Right after you block a move by the monster, you can actually click the bottom side mouse button or left click and right click to perform the elemental discharge. Let me demonstrate. This is basically a really fast shortcut right after you block the attack to attack the monster back for a big burst damage. And with offensive guard, this move is even more better because it's going to be right after you block. Ow. Anyways, if I blocked that, I would have had offensive guard active and then my phials will do extra damage, and it's gonna be great. You're gonna feel real good, adrenaline pumping. Alright? Offensive guard isn't as effective in the Savage Axe playstyle because in the Savage Axe it's much more difficult to block with while you're in axe mode than compared to sword and shield mode. And with the SAED playstyle, you're about 90% of the time you're gonna be in a sword and shield form, while Savage Axe you'd want to be about like 50 or if not 60% of the time in axe mode. So it's going to be much more difficult to activate offensive guard, and after that you also have to swap back to axe form, and by that time like offensive guard is half done. So it's definitely way better for SAED than Savage Axe for this skill. Another skill to mention is guard up. Some attacks can only be blocked with guard up. However, keep in mind that some attacks cannot be blocked even whether we have guard up or not. But against certain monsters, you can that like have moves that need guard up to block, you can run guard up to block them. As mentioned before, Savage Axe does consume a lot of sharpness meter because it's like a chainsaw, and each hit will consume sharpness. You want it's for quality of life. You want some sort of sharpness management skill. Let's say handicraft. Handicraft will make it so that you have more sharpness meter, or you can have protective polish comboed with the item prolonger to keep it so that your sharpness meter is immune to being depleted for a certain amount of time. Or you can just have razor sharp, which makes it so that you halves your sharpness loss. Another thing you can do is with the Teostra armor set, Master's Touch, where you don't lose any sharpness if you crit, and because you want to be building crit anyways with Savage Axe, you can potentially not lose any sharpness for the whole fight, assuming you crit every single hit. So hopefully you have now learned like the basics of Charge Blade. I know I'm not the best at explaining things, and I'm also like not the best at Charge Blade. So hopefully I have done the guy justice and you've learned a thing or two about the Charge Blade you might not have known before. I don't know. Anyways, you're welcome, I guess. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.